relationship healing, self-love mastery, and toxic relationship recovery author and mentor. I'm also the host of the Sweet Empowerment Podcast, Reclaiming Your Personal Power, on all major podcasting platforms. And today, I wanted to talk to you about a topic that, gratefully, that we're hearing more about this, because this is a thing, and it's kind of that sleeper thing that is happening behind the scenes with a lot of people and that they're unaware of. And a lot of times people just call it anxiety, but there could be something else that is going on behind the scenes. And once we can relate to what is happening, then we can apply the appropriate tools. So I'm just going to start off by saying that I'm not a psychologist, psychiatrist. I do not work in the mental health arena whatsoever. And I would invite you to listen with your heart, take what sounds good for you, and leave the rest, because I can never be so bold as to say where you're at on your journey, or am I here to diagnose you. I am a person who has gone through a lot in life. I have dealt with more scenarios and situations than a lot of people that I know, and I've learned how to self-heal through those things. So one of the ways I did that was by coming into really close contact with what I'm feeling, what I'm doing, how I'm showing up in the world, and what's happening within me, and then finding tools that can help heal that thing. So I'll just say straight off that if you relate to anything that I'm talking about here, that I invite you to go maybe contact a mental health professional or someone that you think can help you, or you can apply the tools that I'm going to share at the end of this live stream to help you guys to overcome being in survival mode and to get yourself more into what I call thriving mode. Dr. Joe Dispenza calls it creator mode or creation mode. So that's a great segue into telling you that the brain has two responses. Let me back up. The brain has two places that it is in any given moment. It is in survival mode, which is our fear-based part of ourselves, and it is our thriving mode, which is our higher self and the place where we can actually co-create with the universe. But when we are over here in survival mode, we cannot co-create with the universe, and we have very difficult time manifesting things into our lives because we are living in a state of constant fear. And this is something that is legit and then happens through the brain. The brain formulates this after having come in contact with some type of trauma, whether it is a past trauma that is still swirling around in our minds, or it is deeply embedded in our unconscious, and it has delivered itself into our thinking in such a way that we are showing up into life in certain ways that aren't serving us. Or it can be a recent trauma, right? Because here I am at my age, and 7 years ago, I went through some really traumatic things with the death of my parents really close together, 4 months. And then my dog died, and then my stepfather died, and then my sister-in-law died, and then my brother passed away. And so that is just one of the ways that trauma can show up for us. I'm not saying this is anything to do with death, because it can be a plethora of things. And when it comes to what I deem trauma to me is very simply stated as anything that rocks your world, anything that rocks your foundation of safety, okay? And when that happens, that's going to be processed through a part of our brain that is then going to be on the lookout for that thing happening again. And it's going to devise some ways so that that thing does not happen again, or that we can somehow avoid it. Now, we know that we can avoid some things in life by just being safe and making good choices, but there's so much of life that we cannot avoid because it's just part of life. It's part of living. However, setting ourselves up in a place with the tools that I'm going to share at the end that will not only help you heal this situation, but it will also set you up for maybe future situations that might come across your path that might rock your world a little bit. So what happens with the brain when we get into the survival mode is literally it's getting into a place of not trying to die. Okay, it's trying not to die. It's trying to preserve us. So it formulates all of these places to be controlling or constricting so that we can live, essentially. That's what it looks like. So I'm just going to jump right into these 10 things because I also want to have ample time to be able to cover the tools that I personally have used and many, many other people that I've run across in my life have used, and that will really help you to shift this. Again, if you feel like you need the help of a professional, I highly recommend and encourage you to go seek a mental health professional and someone that can help you with some trauma therapy. So the first one that I want to mention is that we are existing rather than living. So what does that mean? It means there's not a lot of excitement about life. Like, we're not curious, we're not excited, we're not looking forward to anything. And it feels like we're just kind of going through the emotions or through the motions of life, doing what we need to do. And we're just sort of in this survival mode, which is why it's called survival mode. We're just doing the minimum of what it takes to get through the next day. I heard this also being stated as only looking at the next 24 hours. So if we are in the survival mode, that we may be very super short-sighted, and we're only looking at the next 24 hours in hopes of just getting through it or getting by it, just getting by, because it's too much to think any further. We have to like keep things very small and constricted. The second thing that might indicate that you're in survival mode, and the reason why I'm saying might indicate is, again, I'm not a mental health professional, but also this is for you to go within and to really self-reflect and say, is this true for me? Can I see the truth in this? Because a lot of times these things, they become so normal and so part of our repertoire of how we show up in life that we think it's just our personality. We don't really realize that these are trauma-based responses and that we are holding ourselves in a kind of a restricted holding pattern, which is called survival mode. And the next issue is, sign that you might be in survival mode is control issues. So control issues can work two ways. The obvious way, where we are hyper control and we're being obsessive about things in our life, and we're trying to manage all the minutia. And these type of people can show up in like really over planning, like something's not happening for 3 years and they're already starting to try to plan it. And that's okay, because some people are actually planners, but if you go inside, you're going to know if you're doing this from a place of control. Like, I really need to control so that something bad doesn't happen. So if I can have the foresight and to look way ahead into the future, and I can plan, then I can maybe forego having a negative experience or stopping some type of thing happening that I don't want to happen. But I've also seen with people that do this hyper control mode, where they're super planning for the future, what happens is that they're really floored when something comes in out of nowhere. And they're just like, oh my gosh, I've been planning, I've been doing all the things that I felt like I need to do to not have this happen. And that's one of the ways that we can recognize that no matter how much we plan, that life does happen. So again, I will get into the tools at the back end of this, at the end of this talk, or at the second half of this talk, so that you guys can start implementing these tools now to only heal from survival mode that you're in, if you so shall choose. But what they also do is they set us up for the future, because what I noticed personally, when I started to heal that was inside of me, it also set this more beautiful foundation so that when things did come my way, I was actually in this calmer and more grounded state, and I was able to handle them in a much, much better way. So the hyper control issues is wanting to have all your ducks in a row. It's being fixated on all the minor details. Like, we're really, particular. It might be perfectionism. Like, you'll notice that it's a sense of control because you're trying to control your environment because you feel out of control, or you feel like something's going to happen that you cannot control. So if I keep everything in control, again, this is part of the brain. This is the brain doing this. Doesn't mean you're consciously going, hey, I got to control everything. All right. But it can also go to the opposite side, where you give 0 Fs. Like, you don't want to control anything. You don't care about anything. You don't want to plan anything. In fact, it can be like you won't plan anything. You're not going to plan anything in advance because you don't know what might come up, that you might not want to do it, or you might need to respond to it in a certain way. But if you've got this thing in advance, then I can't do that. Or what if I plan this thing, but then that happens and I don't have the money that day, or whatever. So it can become really lackadaisical in life, and can polarize to the other way, from hyper control over to complete no control, where we're not planning anything. we're not taking care of anything. We can be messy, we can be disorganized, we can be unkempt, and it could also be that time slips away. Like nothing really of value has happened in our life. We've just let time slip away, and we kind of wake up and it's been a year and we're like, wow, I had some ideas of things and I didn't do any of those things. So that's where it can be the under control, which is just the lack of care at all. The third thing is a sense of urgency, even around small things. Take a deep breath when I say that. The sense of urgency. Now, hear me closely when I'm telling you this, when I'm explaining this to you. Some things require urgency, right? Someone cuts themselves, or the house is on fire, or, something's happening with our child. Like there's an elderly adult needs our care. There are things that have a sense of urgency to them. But if you're in survival mode, why can't I talk today, you guys? Maybe I need some water. Hold on. Pause. It always helps when I drink water, which is an interesting thing because cold baths, cold water plunges can plunge us out of this too, which is amazing. So maybe I'm not in survival mode right now, but it just reminded me of that. You'll hear about those cold plunges a lot. So it's a sense of urgency with non-emergency things. It's like anything that is outside the norm of what we can predict happening to our life has like an anxiety kind of response to it, where we feel like, oh my gosh, I got to take care of this now. Oh my gosh, something's going to happen if I don't. Now, the something's going to happen if I don't is not really conscious. All right. It's the energy that is driving us behind the scenes. I'm trying to think of a certain example here with this. It's just, it's a hyper response to anything that's outside of the norm is the best way that I can explain that to you guys. And if this is one of your signs, then you're going to recognize this. And someone just gave me a thumbs up. So someone's relating to that. Yeah. And I also want to say real quick that discovering that you're in survival mode does not mean there's anything wrong with you. Okay. I really need to just lay that down here right now. From the beginning, there's nothing wrong with you. You are not fatally flawed, and this is nothing to be ashamed about, because guess what, you guys? We all go through this. I'm actually watching The Walking Dead right now. If you guys watch that show, I'll say this really briefly. And I'm watching it. All I keep saying to my husband is, how are these people not completely traumatized? How are they not just like frozen or just freaking out? Because it's like they're in this constant state of trauma that is happening to them, and it just mind blows me. All right, you guys. So the fourth thing is that you have a lot of fear even over the small things. Okay, it could be, and it's sort of an irrational fear. Now, someone might not think their fear is irrational, but the only way to know if it's irrational is to look around your own environment and say, does the majority of the people around me have this fear? Okay, so this could be something like germophobia, like where people are like hyper fixated on germs. Now, I'm someone who washes my hands all the time. When I open the bathroom door, I put my sleeve like this and I pull the door open, or I use the tissue or the wipe to open the door. But that doesn't mean that I have an irrational fear around germs. It just means I've always been like that. It's like I think about all the people that touch these things, and I'm just going to be clean about it. But that doesn't mean that I have a irrational fear around it. So it's looking at things that you have irrational fear around. Like now it's common for people to have a fear of death, because that is part of our makeup, because we don't know what's on the other side. But if it's irrational, which means you won't go anywhere or do anything, or you're super scared of getting sick, or these type of things, think about it in your own world. Again, this is all about you becoming your own authority. Everything I teach here on this channel, all my other platforms, in my coaching, in my books and everything, is that you need to become your own authority. Because a lot of us are functioning from this unconscious, just autopilot drive inside of us, which survival mode can be. And when we're in that mode, we're just unconsciously moving through life. But when we start to listen to live streams like this, or videos or other things, because I'm not the only person in your world, and you start to get more conscious, that's the whole point. And that's how we start to heal. Is by becoming more conscious, because a lot of what we do is back here. I always say back here. I don't know if that's the thing, but it's in the hidden recesses of our mind. But when we can bring it up here to the prefrontal cortex, and where it's our reasoning and our logic, we can look at it and go, you know what I do? I'm doing that thing. And you are now stepping into the hero and the driver's seat of your own life. Oh, that made me tear up because I know how powerful that is, because so many of us have been reacting to the things around us and in this unconscious mode that we're not in a place of really being in the driver's seat in our life. And that's why I wanted to make this video or this live stream, which will be a video if you guys are only able to watch for a little bit. And I had some inspiration around this, which is typically when I start to share this information, is something will happen in my immediate environment or in my world with a friend or a client or somebody that sparks this in me. And something was happening with somebody in my world yesterday where they have had the epiphany finally, like, God, I'm just in survival mode. I've been in survival mode since I was 18 years old. And it's like, that is a huge clap. I'm holding papers, but I got to clap about that, you guys. I have to clap about that. I have to high 10 that person, because awareness is key. And that person saying, God, I've been in this mode for this long. Yes, you have. And it came about legitimately because guess what, you guys? We experience traumas and dramas in our life. They happen. They happen. They can't not happen. Another just sidebar here is, I didn't make it as a note, but I should have, so we're going to make it 11. 11 signs is that you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. Now, I have not Googled what that saying means, where you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. But basically, it's like, things are good right now. Oh, I think Brene Brown calls it joy foreboding, or foreboding joy. I'm not really sure, but what that means is you're just kind of waiting. You're like, everything is good right now. Have you guys ever had that time in your life? Comment below if you have, where things are going good, but then you're like, what's coming next? Like, it's like, I really don't want to sink into the joy of this or the peace of this because I'm afraid of what's coming down the pike. I remember clearly being in this mode after my brother passed away, and then other people passed away and other things had happened. And I remember in my 20s, like getting into a really peaceful place and then going, uh-oh, don't do that. Don't relax. Don't relax. That's my ego. That is survival mode kicking in, telling me not to relax. But the problem is when we're not relaxed and we're not in creator or what I call thriving mode, then we're not receiving the messages that we need to receive that is going to promote us forward in life. And we are in the not manifesting mode because we are co-creators with spirit and with the universe, and we can create anything, right? But if we're in the survival mode of, oh my God, we're so busy trying to ward off this thing happen that our energy is going in the wrong direction rather than in the right direction. Okay, so there's a lot of fear. A lot of times it's they have to play by the rules, like at all costs. Now, I'm not inviting you guys to do what I'm about to say at all, nor am I condoning it, but I want to give the opposite side of that. So, during COVID, my husband and I would go on a bike ride, and there's no one around. Like, everybody is the lockdown of COVID. Everybody's in their homes. And I pulled up to a major street on my bike, and there is no one. Sorry, you guys, no one for a mile in either direction. So I crossed the road, right? But a person in survival mode might go, no, I have to cross at the light. I have to control, like I was saying, the control thing. We have to control all things that are happening within our world because we're afraid of what might happen if we don't. So that person would want to go and cross at the light, which was half a mile down the road, rather than it's obviously free and clear. There's no one for a mile, literally could not see a car in any direction. Okay, so there's a need to play by the rules at all costs, no matter what. And I'm not saying to break rules. I'm not saying to do that. Laws are in place for a reason. They're designed to keep us safe. They're designed to keep some sort of form in chaos, because the world would be chaos if we didn't have rules, right? Okay, so the fifth one is a need for instant gratification or a focus only on the short term. And I got someone in my life I'm thinking about right now who I've known for over 25 years, and this person lives by instant gratification at the expense of everybody around them. Thank you for another thumbs up, you guys, and I thank you for relating. And please feel free to comment if you guys want to, because I can read them and I can respond to any questions or comments you have. Just give me a thumbs up, in the chat bar there. The chat does not stay when I when the recording goes up, the chat goes away completely. So this is just between us and whoever's in the room at the moment, if that matters to you guys. But this instant gratification of the short term, because they're so desperate for relief, because this survival mode is heavy. It's daunting. It's a lot of fear, and it's a lot of fear that we're not paying attention to. So people might want to do things like eat more, okay? Again, not shaming, blaming anything, any of the things I'm talking about, because some of the things I've done, all right? This is just what we do. So a person might eat more, or they might spend more. They might be super spendy, like they got to go out and be, turn into a shopaholic, or retail therapy, as one of my clients called it, because there's so much fear that's going on. It's like, I have to distract. I got to get myself out of this. So I'm going to go do something to get short-term gratification. They may sleep more, or they may require more sex, meaning not just with their partner, but they may, it may turn into a sex addiction of some kind, because that's that instant relief. It's that instant gratification. And then what I've noticed with people who have had sex addictions, and I'm not going to go off on that, I'm not an expert on this, but what I've noticed is that anytime they had some type of emotion come up that was dense or heavy, excuse me, you guys, I do not know why I'm congested today. And I'm really apologize for that. I should have a Sudafed in my purse. I should take one. But with the sex addiction, what is, anytime a dense or heavy emotion comes up, rather than approach that emotion and see what it's all about and learn from that emotion, they end up going and taking care of it in another way. And this could be the same thing with food, sleeping, or people just check out, right? They just check out. Now, I do believe that sleep is very healthy, but if you're doing it more than 8 to 10 hours a day and you're an adult, like you need to sleep a lot, there's something going on there. And it's worth it for you to go, hey, what's going on with me? Be your best friend, be your best advocate, be your best parent and guardian. Go, what's going on? Just the same way you would inquire with a child or an elderly person, or, my dog's eating more lately. This dog has been self-regulated for so long, and we put the food there and he'll eat when he decides. That's it, once a day. Recently, now he's eating in the morning and he's gobbling it up, and we've even given him more. So that's my indicator, because I care for him, to go, what do I need to do? The behavior has changed. So I'm going to go check into that. Same thing that we care for other people in our lives, we have to care for ourselves, you guys. This is how we heal, and this is what self-love is, by coming really radically present with you. Do you know how special you are? Make yourself special. Make yourself a priority. Okay. Or they might drink more. That was the last point I wanted to make, is they may drink more. People tend to, they want to self-medicate, or drugs. You can throw drugs in there. They may self-medicate because it's too much. There's too much going on. And the one word I don't think I've mentioned, except maybe in the beginning, is anxiety. Okay, when we're in survival mode, there can be a low level, just kind of vibration of anxiety going through us, or it can be a high level of anxiety going through us. And anxiety is on a spectrum, right? And it's normal that we have nerves. Like, we're going to go give a speech, and we're like, oh, I'm nervous to give this speech. That stuff is normal. But if we wake up and, oh gosh, you guys, I remember this. I remember waking up, and it's called waking up with a start. That's what it's termed. And I would wake up and I'd be like, ah! And all I did was open my eyes. Okay, I was in survival mode. I had anxiety. There was some stuff going on. I would wake up like that. I'd pop my eyes open in the middle of the night. These are all indicators that something is going on. And there's a way to heal these. All right, hold on. All right, this next one is important. We're tired in mind and body and or mind. Okay, when we're tired in mind, that means we start to have memory changes, okay, where we might have brain fog. I remember this was a big thing for me. I did not realize I was in survival mode until I was noticing the brain fog. And I'm a very, very sharp person. Like, I think quickly, I plan quickly, I make decisions quickly. And when I'm not in survival mode, that happens. It doesn't take me long to do something. Like, it's fast. I'm like, okay, this, that, okay, this is what I want. Here's what I want to go. Here's what I want to look like. I want that sofa. It's quick for me. But when I've been in survival mode, this brain fog, I didn't even know it was brain fog. If you have seasonal allergies, you might have experienced this too. Again, this is why I want you to be your own advocate. I'm not your doctor. I'm just Kristen Brown, sharing my experience with y'all. And, when I have a lot of really bad seasonal allergies, I can get brain fog too. It's hard for me to maintain concentration. It's hard for me to have a solid thought see its way through. And if it's part of survival mode, this could be what's happening with you. It also could be memory changes. Now, yes, after I had my kids in my late 20s and then I had another one at 38, but I really noticed it after I had my first two kids, because my mind was so distracted with other things that my memory started changing. I started, wow, I don't remember things as much as I used to. And I didn't judge myself. I didn't say something's wrong with me, because I knew I had kids and my brain was going something else. But if just normal life, all right, there's not a major thing that is happening that is taking up the majority of your thinking, and you notice I'm not remembering anything. And you also might want to give yourself a little grace if you're perimenopausal or menopausal, because we all know, if anybody's on here that's in that state, you guys know. It's you walk into one room and you're like, what am I doing? And you're not in a state of survival, or you're not in any sort of stress, but you just can't remember things. That's part of it too. But if you are in just your every regular everyday life, and you're just forgetting things over and over again, then that might be an indicator that you are in survival mode. You could also be part of this being tired in mind and body. This could also be our emotionally reactive. All right, people in survival mode, I've noticed, are very emotionally reactive. And that made my eyes tear up, because I feel so much compassion for those people. It breaks my heart, and it's not because there's something wrong with them, because I know the pain. I know what they're going through, and it makes me feel very compassionate about them. And they can be very defensive, they can be snippy, or they can cry easily. So I am thinking of someone I know right now who cries just telling a regular everyday story that doesn't have a lot of emotion to it, and this person will just start bawling. And that could be an indication of survival mode. You just cry really, really super easily. All right. I think I mentioned lack of focus and harder to concentrate. So when I say tired in mind and body, those are the things of the mind. Body means I just have no energy. I just have no energy. And I know when I have gone through something that does this to me, because I'm a person who will eat my dinner and then I'll relax on the sofa or the couch with a show, and if I fall asleep during that show, I know that I have probably been in survival mode either during that day or for some time. If I have had my normal 8 to 10 hours of sleep and everything's fine, but I'm just find myself I'm falling asleep, on a road trip, or I'm falling asleep in the doctor's office, or I'm falling asleep, my body's just tired and I don't have the energy. I can notice I'll go out on a walk and I just don't have the energy that I normally have. Okay, walking builds our energy. So I encourage you, this is actually one of the tools. I'll just save it for later. Let me keep going with the signs. Okay, we keep our world small and restricted. This is sign number 7. What that means is that we keep the amount of people that we interact with, or the places that we go, or we like repetition. We want things to be really, really small and orderly, because that decreases our chances of being blindsided by something. Because when we're in survival mode, we're in a high level of anxiety and fear as it is. So, if something happens on the outside world, it's just too much. So we tend to really keep our worlds small. We want to keep them restricted because we don't want to be blindsided. And this kind of goes back to the beginning where I said we want to control our environment. So this could also mean that we're really, really constricted with money. We don't want to spend any money. We're really careful. I'm all about a good sale, you guys. I'm all about coupons. I'm all about 50% off here. All that's great. But if you live you have to be so constricted, if you get really conscious with that yourself, you might go, yeah, I'm kind of a little bit extreme with this. It really doesn't have to be that extreme. So those type of things, spending, travel, I don't want to go anywhere. I notice people in survival mode don't want to go anywhere. They just want to stay in their house, or they venture very, very small away from home. I'm thinking of another person in my life right now that since COVID happened, it really, because my gosh, you guys, COVID was really tough for a lot of people. It really shocked a lot of people's nervous systems. And we have to be very aware of that, because if you're noticing this recently, any of these signs I'm telling you, this could have come from that. Like if this is not something that that you are normally like, this could have come from that. I'm picturing someone right now in my life who won't leave the house, will not leave the house. And for the most part, the world is open up. The CDC says we don't need to wear masks. I'm not getting into COVID. I'm just telling you that, for the most part, it has opened up, right? So that fear, and this is not a sick person, that, they said the people with compromised immune systems need to, care more about this. This is just someone there that was probably already in survival mode, and this really rocked their world. Thank you guys for all the thumbs up and likes. I'm really appreciating your interaction. And again, if you have any questions or comments, please, hit it in the chat, and it does not stay in the recorded version of this. So this is just between you and me right now. We're just having a combo. Okay. So they don't want to leave their house, right? They super, super, super small and restricted. So that could be another sign. Less people, like I said, don't want a lot of friends, don't want a lot of people around them, only want people that they know that are predictable and they know what to expect when it comes to that person. The 8th thing is emotionally detached. Okay, this is not all. Again, you may relate to some of these things, but not all of these things. You may relate to 1. You may relate to 0, whatever. Or you may relate to all 8, or there's other things even that I'm not mentioning here. So emotionally detached, where you might be super closed and shut down, which means that you don't want to feel. You've armored your heart, you've cut yourself off, you have detached from empathy. So you have little or no empathy or compassion, or you look at things like, and I'm not saying this mean because you could be the sweetest person in the entire planet and have this problem, okay? It could be like, well, that's their problem, that's their problem, that's their problem. Now, there is a healthy method of that, all right? Because I talked about this in my first book, From Doormat to Sweet Empowerment, that there's 3 types of businesses: yours, your neighbors, and God's. There's 3 types of businesses. So we want to stay mostly in our own business. So there is sometimes I will ask myself, if I am fixated on somebody else's problem or the struggle that they are having, that I will ask myself, I'm like, Kristen, you're spending a lot of time over there. Is that yours? I'm like, no, that's my neighbor's business. That's for them to handle. Okay, how about this thing? No, that's God's business. That's for God to handle. So there is a healthy way to look at this. However, if we're just like, I don't want to know about you. I don't want to know about anything you're going through. I don't want to, don't talk to me. Now, it doesn't mean we're doing that, literally to people. We could be, because I've seen that as well. I've seen a lot, but it's just, it's just a lack of empathy, a lack of care, a lack of concern, very shut down, very closed in the heart center. Don't want to feel, okay? Don't do anything that's going to make you feel. That could be another indicator that you are in survival mode. All right, and the 9th thing is that you feel alone and helpless. And this is a tough one because typically people in survival mode, not all of them, okay, again, you have to take this for what it's worth and what applies to you, but I've seen this with several people around me in survival mode, that they feel alone and they won't ask for help. There's something inside of them that feels like they need to do it themselves. And if I don't do it myself, it's not going to get done correctly, and then something's going to happen. So they have a difficulty. Again, this is under the control umbrella. So keep in mind that survival mode is under the control umbrella. Even though I mentioned number 1, or one of the numbers was about being controlling, either hyper controlling or not controlling at all. The whole umbrella really is about control, because even not controlling, right, is some type of control, because you're making a choice to not control in an attempt to control. I know that is a complicated thought to embody, but I believe in you guys because y'all are smart here. So I know that you're like, okay, that makes sense. All right, so the feeling alone and hopeless means I cannot ask for help because I've been let down, or I need to control. I need to do it my way so that I can make sure that I check all the boxes and that I'm not blindsided by something else that is going to come along the way. If I control it all myself. Now, I am a person, now I just have to throw in this caveat, that I've come to the point in my journey where I know what I'm good at, but I know what I'm not good at. And the things that I'm good at, that I'm going to say control, but it's not really control. I will just really invest my time and energy into those things, which is the emotional health of my family. I invest a lot of time in that, But it doesn't mean I'm controlling it, because the energy that I'm coming at it is not to control. It's the same energy you guys are feeling by me. I'm not trying to control you by any way. I'm just showing up for it because I know I'm good at it. But I'm not trying to control that thing. So it's important that you know the difference. Am I really trying to control? Is this based in fear, you guys? That is one of the best questions you can ask yourself. Is this based in abundance and creating and thriving, or is this behavior based in fear? If you feel that it is based in fear, then that could be an indicator that you are in survival mode. Okay, so those are the 9 signs, and then I wanted to talk to you guys about the tools. All right, so I'm going to go through these tools really quickly. I'm going to have a sip real quick. Thank you all for joining. And all your thumbs up and loves. You know, this is one of my favorite things now, is to get on YouTube Live with you guys. So the first thing I will say is, again, this is like probably the 4th time I've said it, I'm not a trauma therapist. I am not a psychiatrist, nor am I a psychologist. And if you feel that you need a little extra help with this, then contact a really good, solid trauma therapist. I have seen the most amazing things happen from people that I have spoken to in my life that went to some like true trauma therapy, where they dug up the trauma from the past and they reframed it and they healed through that, and they had the most amazing results. And there's freedom on the other side of this, you guys. I think it's really important that you understand, why do I want to do this? Because you're living small. You're not thriving. You're not manifesting. You're not utilizing the abundance of the universe. There's so much out there for us, you guys. But we're little teeny tiny baby humans, is what I call us. We're experiencing all the things of this world, of this material 3D form world, and it's rocking us a little bit. So it is that returning back to that source inside of us where we actually thrive. But we have to get out of the fear mode, we have to get out of survival mode, we have to get out of ego mode, and we have to move ourselves into the abundance, the God, the source, the love, the energy, all of the things that are over here. That's where we move and thrive and manifest. So the second thing I want to mention is to utilize meditation. I cannot stress this enough, and I'm really, really happy that the world is getting more used to this idea of meditation, because in my first book, when I first started coaching, I felt like, you know, when I mentioned the word meditation, people just like, but it's becoming commonplace now to hear about meditation because it works wonders, even if it's 5 minutes a day. Now, I'm not going to get into all the ways to meditate, but I do want to say this to you guys. What it's about is really getting out of the thinker for 10 seconds, for 30 seconds, for 1 minute, for 5 minutes, for 10 minutes. It's getting out of the thinker, okay? It's getting out of the problem-solving brain. So when people say to me, oh, I can't meditate. I can't meditate because the thoughts still come in. Of course they do, because our brains are thinking all the time, even when we are asleep. Of course they come in. But here's what I do. A thought comes in and I go, okay, not now. And another one, I'm like, not now. I remember doing this back during my tsunami when I was at the absolute height of anxiety and fear and survival mode. Just like I was shaking on the inside out. And I said, okay, I read something, and this is what I mean about take the best and leave the rest. I read something and I went, that makes sense to me. I can't give credit to the person who it came from because I don't remember. Of course not. I was in survival mode. But the thing was, when you go to sleep at night, if you keep waking up because you have problems sleeping, right, because you're in some sort of anxiety, overthinking, stress, whatever it might be, tell your brain, tell the problem that you see it and you will address it again when you wake up, but it's not for now. Now is the time to rest. And I literally have trained myself to be a really great sleeper because I don't allow that. This is sleep time. This is self-care. This is sleep time. So I go to bed at night, and if those things start to come in, I don't distract, because a lot of people want to distract by falling asleep to TV or doing things like that, because and some things we can listen to falling asleep that are actually serving to us. But if it's something that's super, super distracting, we're not allowing the brain to rest. And Buddha says that sleep is the best meditation, right? So now I know I mentioned sleep earlier. For those of you who've been on here from the beginning, it's if we're oversleeping, that's when it can turn into a problem, right? We're getting our 8 to 10, and we're still feeling like we need to sleep all the time. Indicator, something's going on. But sleep is great meditation. So afford yourself that. Also, walking meditations, you guys. I know I said I wasn't going to go into these, but I get really excited about meditation because I know how much it has helped me and people I know who practice it. Do not get upset with yourself if you find yourself like, I went off into the ethers or the thinking, solving brain for 5 minutes before I caught it. So you caught it. It's okay. But walking meditation. So this is what I do. When I'm on a walking meditation, I get in touch with all my senses. I feel what my feet feel like in my tennis shoes. I hear things. I hear birds. I hear the wind in the trees. I hear a car horn honking. I smell things. What's the fragrance I'm hearing or smelling? What's the fragrance I'm hearing? What's the fragrances I'm smelling? All my senses. What am I seeing? I will do things like pick out the most beautiful plant or bush on my walk. So all I'm doing is looking for plants and bushes. Now, all of these things that I'm doing, you guys, I'm doing without judgment. All right? I'm not going, oh, there's a loud car horn. God, that person's over there must be, must be a Karen or a Kevin. I don't know. This is just, oh, there's a car horn. It's just about noticing, all right? You just notice. That's called becoming the observer. Anytime you're getting out of the hyper thinking brain, that is meditative, okay? Next one is ground the body to the earth. Yes, grounding. We hear a lot about grounding. I noticed that I was doing grounding before I even knew what grounding was. And I was grounding as a child because we'd go camping up here. I'm in Arizona. This is desert, but we have up north, we have pine trees and mountains and all those things. And I would lay beneath pine trees, okay? I would just lay under them, and I remember laying there and feeling so incredibly good. And it's been one of those things that I will start to crave now. Like, I'm like, I just need pine trees. And I ask myself, why do you need that? I'm like, because I'm reeling a little bit. Like, I'm looking for that. But we don't have to take a vacation to do that. Literally, you can take your shoes off and go stand on the ground. Dirt, preferably. Stand in dirt. If you're living in New York City and there is no dirt, either take yourself to the park or get yourself a potted soil. Do what you can, you guys. And I'm sure it's still okay to stand on sidewalk. But what I'm saying is take your shoes off and stand in the ground, in Mother Earth. I'm not going to explain all the details of this. Is very scientific, but there's a reason for this. And it has to do with ions, okay? And the ions, when they come together and how they, I think it's a negative and a positive ion coming together, forms neutrality. The same thing is true with why everybody loves the beach. Who doesn't love the ocean? Why? Because guess what's happening? I think it's negative ions. Don't quote me. I think we're positive, and the ocean is negative ions. So when those come together, they neutralize each other, and that's why people feel so good near the ocean. So ground yourself in the earth. There's been times where if it's beautiful outside, I will go and lay in my grass outside. I'll take 10 minutes and just lay in my grass. I'll cover my eyes from brightness or put my head in shade and put my body in sun, depending on the time of year that it's in. And I will just ground my body, and I will just breathe, and I will just listen. 5 minutes, boom, I'm up. In the mornings, I do this as well. In the mornings, going back to the meditation, I will say a little prayer, a little mantra in the morning, inviting in, you guys heard it on my last live, inviting in, being my highest self, yada, yada. I will connect with God in the morning for, 5 minutes laying in bed. I will do some of my meditative practices, and then I'm up and at 'em. So these type of practices, they sound so trite, you guys. It's like, it's so woo-woo. It's not woo. It's scientifically based, right? And when I connect with God, what I'm doing is I'm setting myself up to have the best day ever, okay? Because I'm calling in a force to be in my body, okay? If we're in survival mode and we're going, we're jumping out of bed and we're rushing through life, we're not calling in the higher power. We're not calling in actually the superpower of the universe that shifts us in ways that is undescribable. So that's another thing. I mentioned walking, okay? Meditative walking or just walking, right? Walking boosts our energy and it grounds us to the earth. It does all kinds of things. People underestimate walking. First of all, I'm a hiker, love hiking. My favorite hiking place, which is 10 minutes away from me, is closed. They're putting some sort of pipe through there because it's like this mountain range in the middle of Phoenix. And it's my favorite place because it's really close and I can actually ground to the earth and I can be up on the mountain doing what I love to do, looking at the scenery, smelling the fresh desert air, blah, blah, blah. And it's been closed. So I haven't been able to hike. There's one 25, 30 minutes away. I can do that, but that takes more time out of my day. I don't really have that. So what am I doing? I'm doing the next best thing and I'm walking around my neighborhood. Walking around my neighborhood. Because walking does so much for me. It raises my energy. It's my alone time. It allows me time to be within myself. I can breathe and I can let go. Okay? Exercise. We all know that exercise in general, you know, all the endorphin pumps and all the things that happen from exercise. Lots of water, you guys. Remember, we are mind, body, spirits. Mind, body, spirits. When we start to address each of these points in us, we will return back to a state of homeostasis. Okay? Because survival mode doesn't mean we have to stay in it. Like, well, but you know, I've had these traumas and dramas and, you know, I'm just scared of everything now. That's just the way it is. That's your choice and you have free will. But if you're like, I don't like this feeling, this is uncomfortable, it's this anxiety, this stress, whatever it is, and you start to feel that way and you don't want to do that anymore, there's many ways out of it, and this is what I'm listing now. This is how we self-heal. Again, if you need a professional, please seek professional help. Oh my goodness, I haven't seen you in a long time, Nora. It's so good to see you. Mwah, mwah. Thank you for being here, my love. Okay, yeah, so water. We are, 90% water or something like that? Water flushes. We get rid of toxins in our bodies. We keep ourselves hydrated, all right? And when our bodies are hydrated, we are at an optimal level. So water. I suggest that anytime. The other thing is quality food. I personally am very, very sensitive to preservatives and things that high fat dairy I'm sensitive to, gluten I'm sensitive to. When I took those things out of my body in itself felt better, which helped me get my mind better. You see what I'm saying? Because we're walking around with our focus being on our swollen gut and our headache and it's hard to do other things. So this is mind, body, spirit again, you guys. All right, sip of water. Tapping, EFT, emotional freedom technique. Now, I'm not going to get into the details of this, you guys. You can look it up. I will briefly show you what it is. We tap on points. Okay, I'll take off my glasses. We tap on points. Okay, these are special meridians in our body. Okay, we tap. We tap through the problem. All right, we tap through the fear. I'm just giving you all the points and the ones under the arm down here and then the top of the head. Okay, we start off. This is the quick version, you guys. You can Google it. It's everywhere. And it's all over YouTube, and it's amazing. And oh my God, emotional freedom technique. Listen to the words. Emotional freedom technique. Wow. The first time I heard about tapping, I tried it. I was like, are you kidding me? And it worked, and it was amazing. So you start off with the problem. I'm scared. I'm scared of this. I'm scared of that. I'm da-da-da-da-da. It feels like this. I'm afraid this is going to happen. I'm scared. You go through the fear until you feel like you really have outlaid all of it, what the fear is. And then you tap through, I'm willing to let this fear go. This fear is leaving me. And then you reframe your thoughts and you go through the tapping. And they have you, if you're someone who practices this, they say rate your fear on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being super high, before you go into tapping, and then rate it again after tapping. And if you've at least moved a couple points on the board, it worked. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. I told you guys this before. I had massive fear of public speaking. I had no problems making videos or doing podcasts. Well, I did until I got through those, but I hadn't known about tapping yet. But when I got on the Wisdom social audio app, which I've talked to you guys about, I'm a top mentor over there, and I do these live talks. I'm scared to death. And I do them on my walk, so I'd be tapping while I'm on my walk because I was scared of speaking live. Now, as you guys can tell, I have no problem with it. But that's the thing. We can overcome these fears. We got to dedicate ourselves to the journey. We've got to dedicate ourselves. The bummer part of our healing journey is nobody can do it for us. No one can do it for us. And I realized that 12 years ago in my tsunami when people were trying so hard to help me. And I'd be on the phone with them and it would feel good and I'd feel supported. And then I'd hang up and I'd go right back into my crappy state. And there was at one point when I said, no one can do this for me. Like, there's nothing anybody can do. I'm going to have to do it myself. And that's when I remembered God and called in my higher power. And that's when my healing journey began 12 years ago. So, little bit of a segue or a digress right there. So, tapping. Tap, you guys learn all about tapping. This will help you in ways that you can't even imagine. Another thing is catch your limiting beliefs and turn them around. This I learned per the work of Byron Katie, and I will forever, ever, ever give her the kudos for this. If you guys don't know about Byron Katie, friggin' Google her. She does the work, okay? She wrote a book called Loving What Is, and she's got some other books. Man, I study those books, and I was like, oh, okay, so my thoughts are creating my suffering, and my fear-based thoughts are untrue, okay? So I need to find a way to turn this around. I'm getting on low battery mode, so I'm going to have to dip out here pretty quick. So I started turning my fearful thoughts around. This live stream is not about teaching you guys all of that, but I teach it in other live streams. It's all over practically everything that I teach because this is miraculous. And it is in my upcoming book. I have a whole chapter dedicated to retraining your brain. All right. And this is in that, the recovering people pleaser, that is due to come out soon. Just ran into some issues. So retraining your brain, catching those defeating thoughts, asking yourself if they are true. And sometimes they're going to feel like they're true. I'll get to that in a minute. But you're like, okay, I'm never going to find a job. Let's say that's your thought. I'm never going to find a job. Is that true? Can you absolutely know that that's true? No, I can't absolutely know that that's true, right? Okay, so what is an as true or truer thought that is more positive? I will find a job. I will find a job, right? Now, you can see that's the quick version of this, you guys, but that's how it works. And I did that to all my negative and defeating thoughts when I was at the height of my survival mode, when I was at the height of my anxiety in January of 2011. I went through every defeating thought I had and I turned those things around. My anxiety dropped. I grounded into the earth and I plunged into thriving mode. So these things work. All right. Another thing we can do, this is the last tool I'll share with you, is telling yourself this. This is again about retraining your mind, is the story I'm telling myself about blank is blank. So let's say you're about to go to a party and you're really, really worried about going to this party. And you're like, gosh, I'm so nervous. I'm going to this party. What you say to yourself, the story I'm telling myself about this party is, and you go within. Remember, we're bringing what's back here, up here. We're bringing the unconscious conscious because we are functioning from our unconscious mind without even knowing it. It's affecting our body, it's affecting the way we feel, and it's affecting the way we're showing up in life. So you bring what's unconscious, I am so sorry, I'm congested, you guys, up into the conscious. The story I'm telling myself about this party is, I'm going to make a fool of myself. No one's going to like me. Whatever the stressful or fearful thought is for you, that is what you go, okay, there it is. That's the story I'm telling myself. Is that true? It's just a story, and it's a story based in fear. I remember doing this, you guys, one time, going to a function and being so nervous. And I was like, why? I said, Kristen, why are you nervous? Literally, as I'm driving there in my mom van. And I went, I'm afraid of, and I can't remember, I'm afraid of something. I don't remember the exact thing. This was 12 years ago. But I caught what that fear was, and I go, I'm afraid no one's going to like me, or I'm afraid, just something along those lines. Like, I'm going to make an idiot out of myself. I really, truly don't remember. I'd share with you guys because I'm an open book. But I don't remember what it was. But whatever the thought was, I said, is that true? No, I can't know that that's true. That's the story I'm telling about this. So I said to myself, what's a better feeling thought that is as true or truer, right? I'm like, people love me. People are going to love me. People enjoy being around me. Blah, 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 blah. And I talked to myself. I said that stuff to myself the whole week. Wait there. My anxiety dropped. I got back into my body, out of the la-la land, out of the fear, back into my body. And guess what happened? I had the best freaking time. And guess what else happened? I manifested that. The people responded to me in the ways that I was thinking about myself. So what happens is we go into a thing thinking no one's going to like me, and we're going to be on the lookout for ways that we believe people don't like us, and it was majority of the time it's not even true. We're making that up, and we're seeing it through a filter. Okay, now we got this filter on here, and we're like, Oh, those people don't like me. Why? Because someone left early. Well, you know, they left early because they don't like me. Or they left this room and went into that room. Or, you know, whatever it might be. We start whatever we think we're seeing, we're going to see. All right, you guys? So I love you guys, and I'm glad you're here. I've had so many people dip in and out of this room. I got so much love. I got a message from my friend Nora, and I am just so happy that you guys joined me for this today. I do make videos as well, as you know, but some of these things I like to give a deeper explanation about, and I decided that this is my stage. So instead of coming to a workshop or a speech that I might be giving somewhere, I decided yesterday, sitting on my patio, I was like, you know what? My lives are my stage. These are my talks, okay? And I have my notes, and so I know exactly what I want to share with you guys, all right? And it's very different than a video format. I can get more into detail because I really, truly am doing this because I don't want people to suffer anymore. We don't. Thank you for another love there, another. I appreciate that, you guys. And I love the number 7, and that's what it is right now. So I care about you guys. I care about your experience. I don't like people suffering. I've been this way since I was a little girl. I hate it. And if I can help another human being feel better or somehow get a tool, even if it's one sentence in my book or in a live talk or in a video, one sentence that appealed to you, then I feel like I'm doing my job. You know why? Because we're all at completely different places on our journey. We're all at completely different places. Our backstories are different. Our fears are different. Our levels of trauma are different. Our levels of unworthiness are different. There's no two people that are exactly alike. Not only that, all of our DNA is different. So you take all that DNA, no one else even has your DNA, not even a twin, all that DNA and all those experiences together, and you put those into a human being, there's no one else like us. Okay? So yes, we do have commonalities between us, and there is things like survival mode. That is a brain thing. This is tried and true. I highly suggest that you search Dr. Joe Dispenza and you look up him, because after I had retrained my brain in 2011, I had known of Dr. Joe. I had heard him speak here and there, but he really started hitting the airwaves really hard, and this is basically what he teaches, and he teaches it from a scientific level that will completely blow your mind. So if you haven't heard of Dr. Joe yet, then I highly recommend you find him. So thank you guys for being here. I just want to tell you this because this is funny. I try to look at the camera when I'm talking to you guys, or I kind of zone out. I just zone out. And when I kind of like come more conscious, I have caught the timer on 22:22, 44:44, and 55:55. If that ain't synchronicity, I don't know what is. Pay attention to your signs, you guys. All right. Thank you so much for being here. Mwah. I love you. Now go co-create. Okay? Bye.